I, I've been having a lot of dreams recently, real vivid dreams. And for some reason, I've been having New Testament dreams. I was big on Genesis and about the 7 days, about the earth, the creation of the earth. And last night, I dreamt about, of all things, the Garden of Eden. And it was really significant because what I got was that it linked to Genesis. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Garden of Eden. And this Garden of Eden, this utopia, this perfect place, this perfect vibration, this perfect harmonic resonance, Garden of Eden. And unlike the story of the forbidden fruit in Adam and Eve, the serpent convinced Adam and Eve. Well, I don't have to tell you the Adam and Eve story, but what I got was that the real forbidden fruit was the manifestation of that original duality, the masculine, feminine, yin, yang, was the existence of Adam and Eve themselves was the forbidden fruit. And maybe the serpent is about renewal, about ending something and beginning something else. So maybe the serpent was offered the opportunity, and the serpent desired something new, and he created, or she created Adam and Eve, or it created Adam and Eve, the forbidden fruit. And that was the duality. And ultimately, Adam and Eve, the duality, was cast out of unity of the garden. And then from there, I saw Adam and Eve being unceremonially they were kicked out, expelled. And what I got is, as I watched them leaving the Garden of Eden, I was allowed to see that garden, that utopia, would always be available. But it was only through, it was division that banished Adam and Eve and their descendants and us from the Garden of Eden. But the Garden of Eden exists. It's forever there, and the key to getting the clarity to dwell in the Garden of Eden yet again is to resolve duality, is to see the oneness yet again, from division, from unity, division, and the way back to unity. The way back to unity is uniting the divisive forces of yin and yang. And that's, we get the symbol again. And we get assurance that Garden of Eden is available for us. Will always be there. It didn't disappear. It continues to exist on this higher energetic level, this higher vibration, this higher harmonic. And what happened next was my adventures in the fifth dimension, well, I'm able to spend more time in the fifth dimension and look around and really try to get a grasp of what is going on here. And I looked, and there was just this garden of abundance. Fruits and vegetables and flowers and music and song and wholeness, unity. So I had to dwell in the fifth dimension long enough to really begin. First, it was just all on about the vibration, about the incredible hum, the incredible sounds, the incredible smells, the incredible colors, and then had to take a step back and see the garden in its wholeness. So there was in the Garden of Eden. There is the Garden of Eden. It's available to you, to me, to all of us. And there are no temptations, because to get to the fifth dimension, to get back into the garden, we had to shed our shell. We had to solve the egoic sense of self, the egoic sense of separateness, the egoic sense of being special, the egoic sense of not being special. Whatever your story is, you have to shed it. You have to leave it behind. So once you go into the Garden of Eden, and maybe I'll call the fifth dimension the Garden of Eden from now on. But you go into the Garden of Eden, it embraces you, it absorbs you, and you experience it in your light body, your etheric self writ large with the S-E-L-F all in caps. And even though you still may need, just as I need, as long as I'm in this human form, as long as I haven't left this completely behind, I'm able to come back into the third dimension. But I come back with fifth dimensional sensibility. I remember the garden is with me. I can bring the garden in my heart where I can share through compassion, through my energy. I can share glimpses of the garden, glimpses of the fifth dimension, and the reassurance that I'm not special. None of us are special. We're all ordinary. But we're in our very ordinariness, we're allowed to pursue the extraordinary. And we don't wear this mantle. We don't become extraordinary. We're always going to be ordinary, especially in the third dimension. The third dimension in this physical form, very, very ordinary. Nothing separates me from anyone else. Because if I feel any kind of separation, then I won't be able to get back into the garden. I won't be able to get back into my fifth dimensional existence, experience. So that keeps you humble. When you come back through the portal and come back, you go through the golden corridor, you come back down to the third dimension. You accept linear time. You dwell in your mind, but with the remembrance that your heart is equally important, and it's through the mind-heart and the heart-mind, this connection, that balance comes from. And balance of dualities, reconciliation of an acceptance of diametrically opposed concepts can exist and do exist simultaneously because they're one and the same. Dualities and unity. We always come back to this message. It's about balance, and it's about balance allows the balance of the dualities, the balance of the heart and the mind, allow clarity, and clarity leads to the key, and the key leads to opening the portal to the fifth dimension. So everything is cosmically linked in divine order. So if you look at Adam and Eve, yang and yin, yin and yang, as the forbidden fruit, the idea that the divine masculine and the divine feminine is still being, instead of being united in wholeness, is reduced to, even though they retain the divinity, the divine masculine and the divine female, retain their divinity, but now they're separate. And this was the forbidden fruit. The forbidden fruit was to assume one identity over another, instead of celebrating the masculine and celebrating the feminine and keeping it organically whole in its ultimate oneness. If you fail in this effort, well, obviously we fail because as I'm sitting here in my male body and with my yang energy separate from my yin energy, my soulmate. Hi, sweetie. And only through reuniting. So somehow, and I speculated it might be the serpent. Sorry if it wasn't the serpent. Maybe you have a better idea of what caused this fall from grace. What caused this being banned from, this ultimate banning from the garden? Why were we kicked to the third dimension while retaining some kind of longing and some kind of lost memory of the garden, of the fifth dimension? So that was the gift. Even though Adam and Eve, the forbidden fruit was kicked out of the garden, they, in the garden's compassion and empathy, they retained this taste, this remembrance of the garden, this taste. So that was the gift. Even though we were banned from the garden, we were gifted with the heavily veiled knowledge that the garden was always available It's our birthright. It's where we were meant to exist before form, before things, before the senses, before the egoic mind and the egoic heart. Because this shift, this break into the dualities had to both include the mind, the masculine, and the heart, the feminine. Both of them were equal. We always have the image that somehow Eve accepted the apple, and we look down on at least the yang. This is the yang story. Remember, history, his story, H-I-S. History is man's story. So it started with Eve. Was it Eve's fault? I think, having studied these things quite closely, I think that the biggest forbidden fruit was the masculine arrogance, the masculine energy, the masculine desire for power, for separation, for conquest, for hierarchy. And the female her contribution was denigrated. It wasn't respected by the men, by the masculine energy. The yang had contempt for the yin, seen it as lesser, weaker, needing their protection, needing their guidance, needing their energy, their innovation, needing their discovery, needing their adventures, instead of reflection, instead of nurturing. But man had to ultimately admit that with only male there'd be no creation. There'd not be any procreation. It was through women, it was through the yin, it was through the darkness that the seed of life, the seed of wisdom, the seed that we planted that transcend duality and blossomed into this perfect example of divine unity.